The Idaho murders case was thrown into an absolute tizzy last week when Bryan Kohberger waived his right to a speedy trial. You probably saw a lot of headlines saying that the Kohberger trial was delayed indefinitely, which might have been a little bit confusing. So let me break down what happened, where the status of the case stands now, and what we can expect moving forward. The trial for the Idaho college murders was scheduled to begin in October, on October 2nd, and last about 6 weeks. However, all of that changed at Bryan Kohberger's most recent hearing, where he waived his right to a speedy trial.
Is that the case, that you want to waive your speedy trial rights?
Yes.
Under the Sixth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, defendants have the right to a fair, public, and speedy trial. In Idaho, this means that a jury trial must begin no later than 6 months after arraignment, or it's an automatic acquittal. Just a brief civics lesson here. The Sixth Amendment is designed to ensure that if you are accused of a crime, you get a fair shot in court. The guardrails put into place by the Sixth Amendment, like a speedy trial, an impartial jury, and the right to an attorney, are all there so that the legal system isn't one-sided. It's a core principle of democracy. Defendants also have the right to waive some of the protections of the Sixth Amendment, and in this case, Kohberger has exercised his right to waive a speedy trial. Why would he do that? Well, there are quite a few reasons. His lawyer told the judge last week that she simply won't be ready by the October 2nd start date.
I do not believe counsel can be effective by October 2nd, the entire phase.
This is a complex case. There are 4 victims, so the sheer volume of evidence takes a lot of time to parse through. And the defense is also conducting their own investigation on top of that. So pushing the trial date gives Kohberger's team a better chance of shoring up his defense. Also, they can go through that current evidence with a fine-tooth comb and collect their own potentially exculpatory evidence. We also have to remember, for months now, his attorneys have been squabbling with the prosecution over some of the discovery that they claim they haven't gotten yet. Specifically, Kohberger's team has been demanding more information about how the DNA from the knife sheath was tested. All of this is to say they're going to need more time to get their ducks in a row before trial. But in many cases, delaying is also a tactical move. Memories fade with time. Now, it is a gamble, but in a year or two, some of the prosecution's witnesses may forget key details or not be able to recall certain facts, and that could help the defense. But another factor that should be considered is the timing of the trial. When a crime is as sensational as the Idaho college murders, from a PR perspective, you want to get some distance if you are the accused. Emotions are running really high in Moscow, Idaho. The community was rocked by this gruesome, senseless crime. So the more time between the trial and the murders, the better chance Kohberger has for some of that emotion to dissipate. The family of victim Caitlyn Becker seemingly referenced this point when they responded to news of the trial delay in a social media post. After the news broke that Kohberger was waiving the speedy trial, the Gonsalves family shared a long message that reads in part, "Things are going to get rough. Please stick with us. We need the Gonsalves army of love every step of the way." Now, if the trial had gone as scheduled in October, closing arguments would have been in the same week as the 1-year anniversary of the murders. That would have been an incredible opportunity for the prosecution to really hammer home the devastation of these killings and tug at the jurors' heartstrings. There are, of course, downsides to delaying the proceedings. The most obvious is extending the time Kohberger spends behind bars. Had he gone forward with the October timeline and been acquitted, meaning found not guilty, Kohberger would have been out, free and clear in the world, in time to celebrate his birthday on November 21st. Now he's going to have to wait behind bars for months, if not years, before having his day in court. Where do things stand now? The trial is delayed, but it is still very much an active case. On September 1st, Kohberger will be back in court for another pretrial hearing, and we expect the judge to set a new court date then. But I'm going to warn you, don't get too attached to that new date. Now that speedy trial has been waived, it's likely that this date is going to continue to get pushed again and again and again and again. It could be years before Kohberger has a jury trial. In the meantime, both sides are still going toe-to-toe on pretrial motions. Kohberger's team, for one of them, wants cameras banned from the courtroom. They've long complained that all of the pretrial publicity in the case is unfair to their client. Obviously, as a member of the media, I strongly disagree. Freedom of the press and all. Cameras have thus far been allowed so long as the media follows certain criteria, like not focusing solely on Kohberger. But his team feels that that particular directive was ignored at the last hearing. They pointed out examples of cameras trained on Kohberger's face in recent court documents. Now, if you watched the all-day hearing like I did, you know that there were plenty of times, like here and here And here where cameras weren't just on him, it was not simply the Bryan Kohberger show like the defense claims. When the trial begins too, you have to bear in mind cameras will focus primarily on the witnesses taking the stand. That said, Kohberger is the sole defendant in a grisly quadruple homicide, so it stands to reason that he's going to be filmed. In court documents, Kohberger's team also complained that photographers were distracting them, the defense team, and they say that media coverage could unfairly taint a future jury pool. Now, I fully anticipate that multiple media outlets will file their own motions to fight to keep cameras in the courtroom in this case. And from my perspective, as a member of the media, I can say with certainty that I will still cover this case exactly the same way with or without cameras in the courtroom. If the defense is under the impression that no cameras are going to deter us from reporting on this case, they are sorely mistaken. Now, in the midst of all this, the defense wants Kohberger's indictment tossed out. After the last hearing, the team filed 109 pages of documents arguing that the grand jury who charged their client with 4 counts of first-degree murder and felony burglary essentially screwed up, to put it succinctly. Kohberger's lawyers raised 24 separate issues with the indictment, claiming things like the grand jury was biased, that they were given inadmissible evidence, and they even alleged prosecutorial misconduct by accusing them of withholding evidence favorable to Kohberger. But legal experts who I have spoken to don't believe there's enough there for a judge to actually toss the indictment, but stranger things have happened. If that does occur, we would be back to square one and have to have a probable cause hearing, the one we thought we were getting back in June. This all serves as a prime example of just how complex and oftentimes frustrating the legal process in this country can be. The road to justice for Kaylee, Maddie, Xana, and Ethan just got a whole lot longer.